I'll just, we'll just start. I'll give you an introduction, and then you can go with the PPT, and then we can.
Chandra, we are live now. You may start.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I, Chandana Paul, Assistant Professor, Vatel Hotel and Tourism Business School, welcome our guest speakers and all the participants to the research seminar series. We at Vatel India have initiated 11 research-oriented sessions from 11 February to 25th March. It is an initiative to develop research capacity of the researchers. Today's session is on research design and sampling and calculation of sample size. We have with us Professor Dr. Mamta Bhatnagar to conduct the session on research design. About Professor Dr. Mamta Bhatnagar, she is presently associated with various initiatives of IGNOU School of Tourism and Hospitality Management. She is involved in the development of e-content and for the various courses enlisted in the NCHMCT programs at the bachelor's and master's degree level. Presently, she is working as visiting professor in the area of research methodology with ITC at HMI Manesar and IHM Pusa. She is also guiding PhD students in the area of tourism and hospitality studies. She has worked as professor with reputed universities in northern region. She was formerly associated with Dev Sanskriti University, Uttarakhand, and Sridhar University in Rajasthan as Dean Academics and Head of Department Tourism Studies. She has been involved in teaching and research assignments for the last 20 years with various reputed national institutions like All India Management Association. As a certified trainer from India Society for Training and Development, she has been assigned training programs. She has been an examiner for the PhD for various universities and has been guiding scholars and tourism and hospitality discipline. Her academic qualifications are Masters in Tourism Management, MBA, UGC NET in Tourism Management, Diploma in Hospitality Management, and PhD in Tourism Studies. Welcome, ma'am. And I would request you if you can please start with the session.
Thank you, Chandana Paul. Thank you so much. Most welcome everyone to this session. I am extremely grateful to the Vice Chancellor of the University, Dean Academics, Head of the Departments, and all the faculty members for involving me in this such a initiative related to research methodology. I'll focus my presentation on the area that is research design, and I try to keep the presentation as simple as possible so that when you are attending this seminar and this series from different perspectives, that we have students from management background, hospitality, tourism, or any other discipline who can join this seminar and understand the concept. So I'll take up examples and case studies which will be from multidisciplinary areas so that it is easy for us to relate. Now, research as a subject is incorporated in the curriculum of almost all the universities and as well as at the undergraduate and the postgraduate level. In the new education policy, the focus is now more on research because we are trying to revamp our curriculum as per the global standards. So many of our programs will be offered instead of a 3-year duration to a 4-year duration. And in the national educational policy that we are drafting, redrafting from the state and the regional levels, we focus a lot on research. Now, I'll be sharing my experiences as a faculty member and my, observations as far as research is concerned from the perspective of the student. Now, when you have to sit for a research examination or a research paper, it becomes very much important both at the undergrad as well as at the postgrad level. In the postgrad level, faculty members wish to pursue PhD programs. They want to qualify for NHTAT or UGC NET examination. So an understanding of research methodology is very important. And at the undergraduate level, when you are aspiring to join a good hotel chain, or you want to pursue further studies abroad, or even to complete your degree, you need to prepare a good project report and a dissertation. You already had sessions, I'm told, about how to select the topic, how to formulate the hypothesis, what is a research problem. So the basic understanding of the concept is there with you. Now, when we are conducting a research, I'll take a very simple example. For example, I'm planning to conduct a research on the usage of mobile phone among youngsters in India. We know that from the time of pandemic, we are somehow, busy with our cell phones and with our laptops, and there can be an adverse impact on our health, on our eyesight, on our overall, psychological and mental well-being, because many students get addicted to cell phones. If you look at your phones, you will find that you are a part of so many WhatsApp groups. You are on number of social media sites. So probably along with academics, your 3 to 4 hours are spent on an interaction through your cell phone device. So suppose the topic of my research is the role of smartphones among youngsters in terms of the time they spend, and I formulate it in a way that smartphone usage among youngsters and the increasing risk of mobile addiction. Now, I want to work on this topic. Well, the topic is relevant. The topic is easy to understand. Now, how to proceed further? Now, in this situation, I have to decide my research design. Now, in this session of another 30-40 minutes that we are going to conduct, we'll try to understand that if we are picking up a topic which is related to a mental health, for example, smartphone addiction among youngsters, what are the ethical issues that we must take into consideration? Why is this research design important? So let us now slowly move towards the core of the topic. Next slide, please. Can you please change the next? Yes. Okay. So now first and foremost is I have to plan. Let's suppose if I'm conducting this study on the addiction of smartphones among youngsters. Now there are different levels and different categories. I may also focus on conducting this study in your university. I may conduct this study on the basis of the usage in the urban areas and the rural areas. I may also focus on the gender differences in terms of the usage or addiction of smartphones. So first and foremost is I must do some kind of a planning about my research work so that I can finish it off in a less time with a cost saving activity. Because see, prior to pandemic, we all as faculty members wanted the students to fill up questionnaires, conduct meetings, go and personally visit the destinations. But today, the situation is altogether different. What a student will do, they will prepare a questionnaire, they will upload it on Google Forms, and they'll get the responses. So in a way, it's much more faster, it is much more easier. But when we are conducting a Viva, then we would like to ask you, what's your research design? Why have you selected this method or this particular design for the specific research? So in such situations, we have to be very, very clear about the terminology of the research design and why we have selected a specific way to conduct the research. Next slide, please. Now, in every research that we are undergoing at your university or any university, whether it is in the discipline of engineering or it is the discipline of hospitality, tourism, management, any area other than the core humanities, we use this word hypothetical deductive method. Now, what is this method? Next, please. Now, in this method, the first and the foremost point is that I need to understand and observe the areas which are coming up in a big way as far as research is concerned. For example, in many hotels, there are initiatives to introduce tribal cuisines. Now, if I want to take up this topic of feasibility of introducing tribal cuisine, I have to first understand that what is the market now, from where will I get that? Definitely going to get some information from my secondary sources. That is the published trends, the industry reports, the reports of FHA, the publications of CII. So I observe, I go through my literature, I understand that there is a scope of research in a particular area. Then I'm not going to deliberate more on the formulation of hypothesis because that will require a complete session on its own. But please do remember, if you are selecting a hypothesis in your research work, you need to test that hypothesis through various statistical measures. So again, in the case of a research where you feel that you're not very much confident about testing the hypothesis with advanced statistical tools, then in such a situation, you should keep your sample size very simple and manageable. But if you're conducting a research where you think that yes, at least 500 interviews should be done, you must have a thousand questionnaires that should be administered. So in such studies where you are having a large number of people to be contacted for your research work, then hypothesis formulation and hypothesis testing is very, very essential. Then we decide the design. That is the core area of discussion today. And then we go ahead with the data analysis and we present our reports to the management. Now, one very false assumption that many researchers face that everything is available on the internet. There are so many websites which share research projects. In fact, there are so many who also upload, many universities upload the dissertations. So many students feel that, oh, it's very easy to write a research work because I will be getting some document from some site and I just change few words and I know how to, manipulate this situation and I won't conduct a relevant research. So this is a mistake which many of us commit. This is a false perception with which we live in because in the post-COVID times or in the ongoing COVID times, the previous researches are no longer relevant. Today, when you are conducting a research in 2022, you just can't refer to a research literature, in your LR, which is of 2004 or 2002. It doesn't make sense. So many times what I find is that if I get a research proposal, I find that in the literature review, the researcher has referred to some kind of an article which was published in 2012, 2008, 2007. What am I going to do with that article in 2022 or 2023 when the research is going to be published or a research paper will be presented in a conference? So whenever I'm selecting my topic, I'm formulating my hypothesis, I should also take into consideration the potential of its usage in next at least 3 to 5 years. And also I have to be very, very practical in terms of my data analysis and my research design. So now I move forward to the next part, that what is a research design and what are the different types of research design. Next, please. Okay. Now, these are the 3 types of research design which you will find in the book. Now, there are a lot of textbooks available. A lot of e-learning material is also there on the websites about the type of research design. I'll try to explain in very simple words with you what is this exploratory, descriptive, and casual research design. Let's move to the next part of the discussion. Next, please. Exploratory research is conducted at the outset of research projects. The main focus of these research projects is on the discovery of idea and insight. Now, you all know that there is a war that is going on between Russia and Ukraine right now. We don't know what is going to be the situation. last week, at least 86 countries had relaxed their travel regulations. So there was a lot of optimism and hope in the travel and tourism sector that the sector will boom and we are going to get international and global travelers. But this week the situation completely changed. Now, in such a situation, if I'm carrying out an exploratory research, fundamentally, I am sure that it's very difficult to get global tourists right now for my hospitality sector in India, or in fact, foreign direct investment if I am an MBA student. Now, in such a situation, I'm trying to explore whether a specific form of special interest tourism may be popular in the domestic sector, because I do understand that as a researcher we have number of events planned. Mostly the companies have their AGMs and they have their own meetings, so that could be one area where I can do a research and I can work in the area of MICE tourism. Second, I can explore that if any kind of a special interest tourism, for example, if another wave of COVID might be there, there is a trend that people prefer to stay in hill stations because they're working from home, they are involved in remote jobs. So, in such a situation, there is a possibility of increasing the revenues through domestic tourism with specific packages. So when I'm conducting an exploratory research, I'm trying to explore some ideas that, okay, probably this may work. Probably the industries which are into e-learning, the industries which are more into support of development of software and mobile apps are going to grow compared to the industries which are into core manufacturing processes. So when I'm selecting a particular project and I'm selecting an idea, I have to see the life of the product, the life of that idea, and I must get an insight. From where will I get this insight? I will get this insight again from my literature review. If I will read latest interviews, if I will go through the reports and I can understand the projections that yes, in a particular area, government is investing a lot. So if I make my research work oriented towards it, there is a scope for further growth. So this is one part of my research design. Next, please. Next. I gain background information if I'm a researcher. I measure the state of a variable of interest. I test hypotheses that specify the relationship. Now, suppose if I go back to that same example of smartphone addiction. So smartphone addiction, I have gained background information because a lot of reports are there in the market which have given me a lot of insight that because the entire education was shifted on smartphones, so everybody is getting addicted to it. I developed few hypotheses. I'm not deliberating on the hypothesis right now. I also understand the variable of interest. Now, smartphone usage can be measured, and its addiction can be looked from different perspectives. I can also conduct this study on the mental health of adolescents. I can also conduct the study with reference to the level of interpersonal interaction. I can also discuss, as I shared with you, the regional differences. Many schools, many colleges in India, people are from poor background, they don't have access to smartphones. So I can do a comparative study. So in such a research design, I have to find out my variables of study, and I also have to decide the relationship between the variables. For example, what is the relationship of a smartphone with reference to the gender, relationship of smartphone with reference to income, and its relationship with reference to its usage, whether the usage is for social media interaction or the usage is related for educational activities. So whenever I'm conducting an exploratory study, it is essential for me to formulate a hypothesis and work on my dependent and independent variables. Next, please. So I have already done secondary data analysis. I assume that you know that secondary data is available in various forms, and you are going to do an intensive study in your literature review as far as secondary data is concerned. And second is also, it's not only essential for me to go through the books and the journals and the research papers, because if I'm at the undergraduate level, probably I may not be a very keen reader, or maybe I'm too overloaded with a lot of work that I can't go through number of research papers. Whereas for a PhD student, it is compulsory that they have to write at least 30 references, 40 references, or they have to prepare a separate chapter for LR. That is different altogether. But for a new researcher, what is it that I'm trying to understand from my exploratory research is my experience survey. So how do I conduct this experience survey? I may call up my friend and ask, I'm planning to do a research work on this. So I may gather information and opinion from my peers, from my faculty members, from my reputed professors, as well as I can also search that what are the areas where I think that information about this particular topic can be accessed to. So it is always better to take up a topic which is all relevant, which is up to the mark, and which makes some sense. Because see, if post COVID, if you look at HR, the trend has completely changed. If you look at the concept of remote work, hybrid work culture, now the government is coming up with a new labor law. Government has scrapped 44 labor laws, and they have divided those 44 labor laws into 4 occupational codes. Now, if I start working on some topic which is outdated or which is no longer going to be of much use, then again it's a problem for me. So I have to not only go ahead with my secondary data analysis, but I'm also supposed to carry out a little bit of survey activities. I hope you understand what survey is. You can conduct a survey through an interview schedule also, and you can conduct a survey through a questionnaire. So this is just the beginning of the research. This is not the end of the research. This will help you to decide which research design you want to use in your entire research work. Next, please. Next. Okay. So I'm going to collect information, and I'm going to also assess this information, and I will relate it with the specific problem. So suppose if I want to introduce tribal cuisine in the hotel. Now, seems to be very innovative topic, but it requires a lot of exercise. Because if I'm really interested in this kind of a research, first and foremost, I have to go through the present, SWOT analysis of that particular property, that whether they'll be having the feasibility of adding a new cuisine. Secondly, I have to also look at the overall manpower requirements associated with it, the cost associated with it. So now for a researcher in the university, it is not possible to carry out a complete project analysis for an introduction of a tribal cuisine. So probably I'll just try to reformulate my topic and say an exploratory study on the changing attitude towards tribal cuisine, or probably a small topic like a vegan ice cream. Now, vegan food is becoming very popular nowadays. So I just want to understand. I want to do an exploratory study about a keto diet or a vegan food or a tribal cuisine if I'm a hospitality student. If I'm an HR or a marketing student, I'm trying to, for example, try to explore the changing habits of shopping among online shoppers. Now, I can also do a comparative study during the COVID times, and now when everything is practically open, the government has allowed malls to function. So probably I can work on a shopping experience. So it has to be from the point of view of the customer. Because see, if you are conducting a research on a specific hospitality property? Definitely, in such a situation also, no management will really give you an access to their internal records. The objective of research at the university level is an academic exercise. This academic exercise will give you an idea that if you want to really go ahead with a practical research in a specific situation, what design you should use. So the expectations of your faculty members or the expectations of your teachers or any other senior professor is to take up a topic where you can easily get the respondents, a topic where you take up an exploratory study and understand the nature of the problem. So most important point here research design को select करने का is problem identification. आप कौन सी प्रॉब्लम पर वर्क कर रहे हो? Are you working on a problem which is related with the management orientation? For example, it is related with employee attrition. So this is a problem related to management. Employee turnover is a problem related with the HR policies of the hotel. So in such a situation, obviously no HR is going to give you honest data, how many people have left the hotel. So you have to look at the topic from the feasibility point of view, that if you're going to carry out a survey, who all will be your respondents? That is something which is very, very important in terms of the selection of the research design. Next, please. Now, many of us get confused with this word case study also. You know, at the graduation level, what is this case study? Sometimes enthusiastic researchers try to do comparative case studies between two hotels and two brands. Now, if I'm going to do a research work on two leading coffee chains of India, or two fast food outlets of India, and I write down a case study on Wimpy's or a case study on KFC, will be how much information I'll be able to get from the primary sources? Probably I can carry out a small survey that how often do you visit a fast food outlet, how much money in a week you spend on these kind of activities, what is the day when you prefer to visit a fast food outlet. So in case analysis, we take up one specific company, or we many times take up two specific organizations, and we try to understand. This is again important because this gives us an insight about the leading players in the market and the changing preferences of the customers. And then we have this, what is this focus group? Focus group is a specialized group where we have a spontaneous discussion for the purpose of gaining information relevant to the research problem. Now, what is focus group? Now, from the point of view of the faculty, I am conducting your classes. Very nice. But I'm not very sure how many of you are really attentive. So if I'm going to write a research paper on the effectiveness of online seminars for the students of management in a particular university, then it is a focus group discussion, because I'm going to just contact few faculty members and ask them your experience. Do you think online mode is effective or classroom teaching is effective? Because here we are trying to assess that probably from the new academic session, the university should, launch both the programs in both the modes, online mode and offline mode. ये रिसर्च, ये एनालिसिस, ये डेटा फोकस ग्रुप ही बता सकता है कि ऑनलाइन क्लासेस ज्यादा इफेक्टिव है या ऑफलाइन क्लासेस ज्यादा इफेक्टिव है. So when the nature of the problem is very specific, when you know that practicals cannot be done in an online mode, so in such a situation, it is the conclusion of the focus group that gives me the answer of the problems that I am addressing to. So in such a situation, अगर मैं exploratory research design use कर रही हूँ, so probably I may use an interview schedule. I will just interview 8 HODs from 8 different departments, and that interview will be probably for half an hour, 40 minutes, where we are going to assess from the faculty point of view that what is going to be the level of effectiveness of teaching, the workload of the faculty, the participation of the student, and the challenges that we all have undergone in last 2 years. So it depends on you as a researcher, what kind of a topic you have selected and what kind of a research design you wish to apply or use in your overall research work. So these were some of the points related to exploratory research design. Now I'll quickly move to the second part of the research design. Next, please. This is descriptive research. Now, imagine a situation when you are part of an NSTC project. Now, everybody should be aware about it that the government has launched more than 40 skill development councils. Now, these skill development councils are sector-specific councils. For example, in the area of tourism, we have the Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council. We have the Retail Management Skill Council. We have skill councils related to different sectors such as aviation, finance, HR, the Ministry of Education. They all are managed by the ministry. Now, I want to conduct a descriptive research where I want to study the findings related to a larger population. For example, if I look at the data and I find that the data indicates that there are 60 HMs that are registered under National Council, and there are 5,000 students who are studying in different colleges, private universities across the country in the area of hospitality management, and 10,000 students in northern region are studying in the area of specifically management. So when I'm trying to understand that how the skill level of the hospitality students, the management students, the psychologists, how the skill level will be utilized in future, and what are the problems youngsters are facing in terms of the choice of their profession, then I'm going to carry out a study on a larger population. So generally in the descriptive research studies, the recommendations are related with certain questions where the population resides, what is the characteristics of the population, and what are the challenges a particular population sample might face. Next, please. So I could conduct a cross-sectional study, or I can go ahead and conduct a longitudinal study. Next, please. What is this cross-sectional study? So in this, I measure a unit from a sample of population at only one point in time. Sample surveys are cross-sectional studies that where samples are drawn in such a way as to be representative of specific population. So it's very, very simple to understand. Suppose if there is a job fair, and in that job fair, the jobs are offered to those students who have 1 year of basic skill qualification, let's say in the area of bakery, as simple as this. Now, you may have students because the objective of the new education policy is multiple entry, multiple exit. अभी क्या था इंडियन सिस्टम में ये है कि आप 3 years complete करोगे, you will get a graduation degree. But with this new policy, there is going to be a scenario that you can exit the program after 1 year, after 1.5 years, after 2.5 years. And at every exit point, you will get a qualification certification. So now, if I'm trying to assess the market as far as the professionals in the area of bakery is concerned, and I want to carry out this cross-sectional study. So in this cross-sectional study, probably I will take up 10 students who have studied bakery from your reputed university, 10 students from IHMs, 10 students of, those who have undergone an NSTC program, and 10 students from a state government university. So I'm taking representatives and samples from different stratas related to bakery, and I have invited them for a group discussion or a brainstorming session, and I'm trying to assess that they all may be having a similar level of inputs in terms of academic teaching is concerned, but there is a difference in terms of their personality. There is a difference in terms of their problem solving approaches, and difference in terms of their presentation and experimental skills. So whenever I'm conducting a descriptive study, so I take from different stratas the samples related to my area of study. So it's slightly different from exploratory study, because in exploratory study you have a lot of freedom, whereas in the descriptive study your study is for a longer population and it is very important study. So you need to spend more time, and you need to get samples from different populations also in this kind of a study. Next, please. Okay, so longitudinal study. Now, if I want to write a research paper on the online shopping behavior with reference to, let's say, older population above 40. So in such a situation, what am I going to do? I'm going to actually assess their online shopping behavior for over a period of time. Now, these studies are not done generally by us because we have a very limited time frame. We are given a time of 3 months or 6 months, and in certain cases, 1 year to write our dissertation. So longitudinal studies are generally done by the market research firms. For example, if I take an example of electric vehicles. Now, the target for electric vehicles in India is 2030. So, if I start working on EV right now, it's a study of the population and the sample over a period of time. My findings will differ, and it's a challenging task to implement EV across the country in next 7 years. So probably few market research firms will work closely with Maruti Suzuki or Tata Motors or Mahindra and Mahindra, and will give them some inputs. Let's see, this is how the population preferences are changing. These are the cities where you can launch the EV vehicles. This is the kind of a government support that is required. So in the case of longitudinal studies, we measure the same sample unit of a population over a long period of time. So let's say 20 crore people in India have their own vehicles. So out of those 20 crores, as a market research firm, I can contact maximum 10 lakh people, because more than that, it is very difficult for me to carry out this research. But I'm the authorized agency on behalf of Tata Motors to carry out this study. So this is another way in which research may work out. Next, please. Next. I may have continuous panel, I may have discontinuous panel, and I may have omnibus panels. This is very simple. Continuous panel, every year I'm going to send a questionnaire, because I want to understand every quarter. I'm going to take feedback from my set of people that, okay, how is the quality of the product? Do you think that the product needs modification or new product launch should happen? Discontinuous panel vary from one panel measurement to another. For example, there is a recent study that Hindustan Unilever is losing grounds in India. There is a study which indicates that Indian rural demand is going down due to pandemic. So as a result of it, many FMCG companies are facing a decline trend in terms of the purchase power. So in such a situation, if I am a market researcher and I have to give recommendations, so I may vary questions from one panel measurement to others. Probably in the state of Tamil Nadu, the demand is more compared to that of Chhattisgarh, and probably the demand is high in case of Gujarat compared to that of Punjab. So I have to be very clear that what kind of a panel I am going to use in my descriptive studies. And also, I'm also going to focus on number of sub levels and other things associated with it. So this is a big activity. This is a time consuming activity where I focus on my investments, my cost of conducting the research, and the results associated with the research. Next, please. Next. I think we can share this PPT. Next, please. We just have very limited time now. Continue next, please. Next. Then we have a casual research. Okay. Now, casual research may we use experiments. Next, please. Okay, now you know what experiments are. You have been doing experiments both in your school as well as the college level. But in these experiments, we manipulate the independent variables and the dependent variables. So, for example, smartphone can be an independent variable, but the mental and the psychological well-being, the status associated with the purchase of smartphone and the usage of smartphone, the time spent are the various variables which can be manipulated with the independent variable. Next, please. Next. So independent variable and dependent variable. This is another area where I have to take into consideration because it is linked with my hypothesis also. For example, if I am interested in special interest tourism and I am interested in community-based tourism activity, I'm not interested in leisure tourism. I don't want a professional itinerary. I want to visit a rural area, stay with the rural folks, understand their traditions, and enjoy a peaceful life with the rural community. So there are certain variables on which I have no control, and there are certain variables where I can control in my research. For example, village tourism as a concept is an independent variable. Government has launched so many schemes. Government has identified more than 50 villages across the country, which are developed, financed by Government of India. So but my travel plan to a specific village is dependent on various factors. This may be dependent on the availability of time, number of family members who are moving with me to that particular area. So this requires more discussion, but I'm just giving you an insight that whenever you're formulating the hypothesis, then you have to take into consideration the dependent, independent. Next, please. Next. And the external variable. So now I wanted to visit my family members in US. I had decided, I had already planned, and now this conflict has occurred. So it's an exogenous variable, which has affected my entire research plan. So many times what happens is that if I'm selecting a topic and this topic is a topic which is very sensitive in terms of government regulations or in terms of the practices. For example, as I shared with you that HR policies are changing now. Earlier, HR was only related with a lot of fixed time workers and permanent workers. But in the new code, the government has changed the definition of an employee. According to government, anyone who is working as a part-time or as a remote worker is also your employee. So it's going to have an impact on my research study. Because if I am studying motivation level of permanent workforce in a PSU, so exogenous variables are those variables which may have some effect on the dependent variable, yet not on the independent variable. So whenever I'm working on my hypothesis, I should also take into consideration the external factors. Next, please. Next. Now, this is the last part of it, experimental design. Experimental design is a very important concept, especially for the master's degree and the uh, PhD students, because in this experimental design, we generally use two types of groups, control groups and experimental groups. Next, please. I'll explain quickly. Next, please. Next. Okay. A true experimental design isolates the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable while controlling the effect of any extraneous variables, extraneous variables in quasi-experimental design. Now, I'm not going to discuss because we're just left with 5-10 minutes only. I'm just giving you an example. Next, please, if you can share the next slide, please. Okay. Pre-test, post-test. Next, please. I'm just sharing few terms with you because the time is very limited. So what is experimental design? With a very simple example, I'll explain. Suppose you're very much influenced by the various health initiatives. You want to be very, very smart and healthy, and someone suggests, okay, work on a research topic related to yoga tourism in Rishikesh. Seems to be okay if you are a tourism student. Rishikesh is considered to be the yoga capital of India, and many people say it's yoga capital of the world also. So now you are writing a research paper on the role of yoga in improving the health of an individual. You're very excited because Government of India has also announced the International Yoga Day, and everywhere every government is spending a lot of money on free, programs, and there are a lot of yoga trainers. So if you're using an experimental design, you will use two types of groups in this. There are only four words that we have to understand: pre-test and post-test, control group and experimental group. So probably you will go to Rishikesh, and there, what will you do? You will contact people who are practicing yoga, and you would like to also ask them, share their, and you will request them to share their experiences. So if it's an experimental design, you will have a kind of division of your sample into two categories. One is the control group. Control group is the group who will not be practicing yoga. 25 participants not practicing yoga is your control group, and the experimental group is a group 25 participants who are doing basic yogic exercises. So what will you do? You will conduct a pre-test and a post-test. Suppose you started your yogic experimental research design on 1st of March. So you will do a pre-test. You will take a record of their weight, height, eyesight, respiratory problem, medicines that they take and everything. And you make a record of it. And you have a control group also on whom the yoga is not administered. And after 2 weeks of yogic exercises, you again check the physical parameters, and you find and you try to assess in the experimental group design that whether there was any change in the health in terms of the weight, eyesight, and the mobility issues that they had. So you find many times the popular Baba Ramdev always claiming on the media channels, many this exercise was done, this asana was done, people benefited out of it. So this kind of an exercise where you're experimenting with a new drug, you're experimenting with a new cuisine, or you want to experiment with a new lifestyle, you use experimental design. Again, for a researcher, probably for a PhD student, yes, this research design is very much relevant because it helps them to understand and design a new package altogether for the health of the community. But yes, for the junior levels and for the undergraduate level, you please take this topic of experimental design only when you think it is easy for you to understand and you can get the samples associated with it. So with this, I end my presentation, and if there is any doubts from your side, I request you to kindly share and raise your questions related with research design.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was such a crisp and an informative presentation. And
Thank you.
I also being a research scholar and also assistant professor here, I do have one question, ma'am, in my mind, which comes. If a topic which I am, doing my research on, it's not a topic which has been, which does not have so much of secondary data available, which has not been explored much. In that case, which kind of research design is the best to apply?
Can you give me one hypothetical example on this
Example, ma'am,
context?
like in hospitality, we do have certain, hospitality is a very big industry. So in that, if my domain is housekeeping and I want to do not in hotels, my research should not be based on hotels, but on multiplex, the cinema theaters. Then, which kind of research design could be, I can opt for, which would be the best to go for. An exploratory one, because descriptive I can't do.
See, in such a situation when we are stuck, that we don't have many Indian studies available, because
Yes.
multiplex is a phenomena which is recently introduced last 10 to 15 years only. But this
Yes.
is widely researched in the literature abroad. You will find a lot of research papers published in American universities, Canadian universities, UK universities. So you can use those research papers because these concepts are still at a very nascent stage in India, and your research will
Yes.
be very much valuable because multiplexes, if you look at metro cities, you find this concept, and also multiplexes, I mean, what kind of an orientation you have, probably if you want to look at it from the customer perspective, then
Yes.
ultimately it has to be exploratory research, but kindly use the research work of leading international researchers only, because India may the very few people have written on multiplexes as such, because without
Yes.
literature review in the Indian context, we don't, accept the research work. Like, for
Yes, ma'am,
example,
that is.
I'll share very, very interesting data that universities in New Zealand are okay with an interview of 20 participants only in their final PhD. But India may, we have a fashion, we have a trend that if we submit a PhD thesis with just 20 interview schedules, the whole committee will feel only 20 interview schedules. So there is a difference in the
Yes.
perception also in terms of the research. So kindly refer to international studies only. That is going to be much more better for you in this situation. So
Yes,
any
ma'am.
other question from
I'm just looking at my chat box, ma'am,
uh,
whether we have any more questions. Um, don't seems to have one because I think you have taken the session so well. Everything was explained so well. It was such a crisp presentation. So I think all the participants are clear with everything. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your
thank you so
valuable
much.
time.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so
Thank
much.
you very much. Good wishes for your research work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this, thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you.
So everyone, now moving to our next session. We have our next session on the topic sampling and calculation of sample size. And to conduct this session, we have with us Dr. Kishore Kumar Maurya. Sir, welcome. Maurya, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here.
Here. Sir, can you please, may I request you to please switch on your camera so that we can see you
Definitely.
also?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. So
Am I
a little
visible clearly?
introduction about Dr. Kishore Kumar Maurya. He is presently associated with School of Management, GD Goenka University as professor and area chair. He has specialization in the field of management science, operations, and technology management. He is a prolific member of academic and research fraternity at GD Goenka University. Dr. Maurya has performed an instrumental role in designing and delivering doctoral and postgraduate programs at School of Management. Dr. Maurya has keen interest in predictive and prescriptive modeling, quantitative research, and measurement of supply chain performance. Prior to joining its current role, Dr. Maurya was associated with Lancaster University School of Management programs at GD Goenka World Institute, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, and IBS Business School, ICFAI, Hyderabad. Dr. Maurya, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the introduction. So I assume that all these students are research scholars.
Yes, sir, we do have research scholars, faculty members, and also students of master's program.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask so many things, okay, in my presentation. So it is going to be a two-way communication. Is it okay with you guys? Will you be able to communicate, interact with me?
You can reply to us on the chat box.
Okay, or they cannot contribute, I mean, in terms of audio.
So we can give rights to certain people, but not all of them, because then it will
Okay,
become
nice.
too messy in there.
Okay, no issue. Okay, so today what I'm going to talk about sampling and calculation of sample size. And for researcher, this is one of the most interesting topics of after topic. Sometimes you can say that this is a great challenge for researcher to identify the right kind of sampling techniques and to find out the sample size, right kind of sample size. And when I say to change, then change it, okay? And who will be doing that? I skip the name.
Sunil Kumar, I'm the admin for the program.
Okay, Sunil. So Sunil, when I say that please change the slide, then please change the slide.
Done, sir. It will be done.
Okay, okay, Sunil. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to I'm going to make a few some kind of background foundation of what I'm going to talk. Okay. So when we talk about sampling, then sampling is the most spoiled kind of concept used by researcher, by economists, and by business experts. Why I say so? Because if you use sampling in a right way, then you will reach to the right conclusion. Okay, and if you want to manipulate your results, your outcome, then the sampling is a very great notorious kind of both the words I'm using over here technique, so that you can manipulate your customers, you can manipulate your audience, you can manipulate population of any country. Okay, and for PhD students, the sampling is always a kind of question which they always struggle about, that what kind of sampling they should use. And because what I'm going to talk you right now, possibly that will explain you, that will make you aware that okay, how the sampling is used. Okay, so let me start with something like the presidential election in America at the time of Franklin Roosevelt. Now, what they have done at that time, some research company proclaimed that the Republican president candidates will win the election, and they did a very thorough market research, and based on that their marketing research report, their research report, they predicted this. Shockingly, when the results declared, Democrat president won the election. Now, it was a very shocking result for Republicans and the citizens of America, because in all the media, and specifically referring to that particular research, Republican president was supposed to win the election. So what went wrong actually? Now what they have done, the research company was Illustrated Weekly, the magazine was Illustrated Weekly. Actually, at that point in time, they took the feedback of people in America who owned telephone. And at that point in time, only rich people used to own the telephone. Now, most of these rich people, they were favoring Republican candidates. Okay, Republican candidate. And Democratic candidate Franklin Roosevelt, candidate Franklin Roosevelt was nowhere in their favorite, favorite candidate. So when the election took place, because their sample was faulty, so the result was absolutely came out to be their shocking. And same thing if you look at in over national politics. At the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, now India Shining campaign was, it was undertaken by BJP government at that point in time, and every media house was proclaiming that the next government will be again of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was one of the most popular Prime Minister of India at that point in time. But again, then the BJP was defeated in that election and Congress won the election. So again, what went wrong there? Now again there, all the media house, they collected a wrong kind of sampling. Their analysis was based on wrong kind of sampling. When a company launches a product into the market, then they also decide about that where to launch the market and what kind of market they have to launch. Okay, and whether their product will be successful or not. So they do research and they select sample. Now, if they do not select the right kind of sample, right representative of the population of right kind of representation of their population, then again that is going to be a very futile exercise. Okay, so today what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about that what do you mean by sampling, and how this sampling can bring some kind of decisive factors in your research, and can make right kind of conclusion in your research. Then I will talk about calculation of sample size. Okay, how to calculate sample size for the right kind of research, the kind of research you are doing. So my presentation is, next slide please. Include these objectives. I will be talking about to understand the meaning and importance of sampling, to know why sampling is used, to get awareness about sampling statistics, to understand the process of sampling, and we will talk about randomization, to understand the sampling errors, to learn different types of sampling, to able to differentiate between probability and non-probability sampling, and to calculate correct sample size for a research study. These are the objectives which we are going to discuss in this session. Next, please. So when we talk about sampling, sampling is a process of selecting a predetermined number of individual units from a larger population. What we are talking here, we are talking about a research study, and any kind of research you undertake, we have to think that whether it requires some kind of sampling or not. Now, when we try to understand that when we require sampling and when we do not require sampling, we need to understand what kind of research we are undertaking. So if we are undertaking a census research where each and every unit of or respondents of your population needs to be reached, in that condition, sampling is not used because it is a census survey, it is census research. So all the units of population have to be reached, like what we do in the calculation of population, what we do when we calculate family income. So family is considered as a unit, and each family of India, we reach there and we find out what is the family income. Okay. So in the case of census, where we want to reach to each respondents, then we do not go for sampling. Okay. When we have a population size very large and we do not want to do census, and we still want to understand the characteristics of that population, then we go for sampling. Okay, then we go for sampling. And in this, what we do, we first define the population and then we take a proportion of that population, okay, as our sample. Now, this process of selecting a sample from the population, proportional representative proportion of the population is known as sampling. Okay, so sampling is a process of selecting a predetermined number of individual units for a larger population, and it is a technique to make inferences about characteristics of a larger population by obtaining information from a subset of a larger population. Okay, so what we do in this case, that we study this sample which we have taken from the population, and then we inference that population based on the study we have done on the sample. Okay. Now some of the examples which we can look at, these are what? Exit polls, predicting outcome of an election based on feedback of a small proportion of voters from a very large population. And these exit polls, we have elections going on, state assembly elections going on in India right now in 6 states. So we can look at this just before the commencement of poll. These exit polls were taken by different media channels, media partners and channels. Okay. Then we have consumer surveys, finding favorite brands of smartphones, wristwatch, cars, etc. For this kind of research, again, we go for survey research. We go for understanding the population characteristic by using the sample. Okay, so there also we go for sampling. In production, when we talk about sanctioning a lot, and when I say sanctioning a lot, it means what? That in a manufacturing assembly line, in one day, a machine or an assembly line can produce hundreds and thousands of products. And it is practically impossible for a technician over there or a lab assistant over there to test each and every single unit of that production, that assembly line. Okay, so what they do, they take the proportion of that total production and then they calculate, they test it, they calculate some kind of standards and then test it, and then based on that that sample, they sanction, they clear the whole lot of production in production line, in assembly line. Okay, so like for example, when we talk about car, automobile, any automobile, we have wheels, and in each wheels we have many hundreds of ball bearing. Okay, now these ball bearings are produced not in a car manufacturing company. These ball bearings are manufactured by companies such as SKF or NBC. Now, one machine at NBC manufactures thousands of ball bearings per day. So, to clear that whether these ball bearings are having the right kind of quality and standards, the production manager over there takes one small proportion of these ball bearing, which is produced in a day, and then test it. They calculate the diameter of the ball bearing, and if it is according to the specifications, and the sample is clear, then they clear the whole lot of ball bearing. Okay, and that is how it is used in manufacturing also, in different different products manufacturing. So that is how we can understand the sampling. Okay, the meaning and importance of sampling, and it is used in every field. Okay, whether it is automobile, consumer electronics, or any other kind of service industry we talk about, where we need to talk about preferences and tastes of the consumers. Next slide, please. Okay, so why sampling is used? To learn something about a large group without having to study every member of that group. I think I already made ample clarity about this, discuss about this. Second is time and cost. Studying every single instance of a thing is impractical or too expensive. Okay, so when we talk about census survey, then it is time consuming, it is costly, and that's why we say that in industrial research and in practical kind of research, consumer research, we go for survey and sampling. Okay, second thing is that when we go for census survey, census sampling, census survey, then again it is a time consuming, so it is impractical. It will take lots of time, and the managers in the industry, they do not have that much of time. Okay, sampling versus census, I already discussed about. So in the case of population calculation, we go for census, but at the same time, if you want to know some favorite brand preferences of this population, then we go for sampling. Okay, improve data quality. Now, what happens in the case of going to each of the respondents of the population? Sometimes we just test the peripheral information. We do not go to in-depth information. Okay, so in sampling, what we can do, sampling, because we have taken a very small sample, and we can have the opportunity to look every aspect of these samples. Okay, so we can do in-depth analysis, in-depth information of each sampling units, and that's give you more detailed data, qualitative data. Okay, so that is how we can look at the data quality when we talk about sampling. Okay, we want to minimize the number of things we are examining, or we examine, or maximize the quality of our examination of these things we do examine. Okay, so whatever examination we are doing, if we want to minimize those things and we want to improve the quality of those things, then we go for sampling. Next, please. To know why sampling is used, why sample is necessary, why it is unnecessary. So before I say that, okay, why we want to go for sampling and why sample is required, what I want to discuss that why sampling is unnecessary. Okay, and in this case, if we look at that why sampling is unnecessary, then we can really understand that why we want to go for sampling. The number of things we want to sample is small, then we do not go for sampling, we go for census. Data is easily available, accessible, then again we go for census, we do not go for sampling. Data quality is unaffected by the number of things we do or we look at. Okay, for example, you are interested in the relationship between team batting average and winning percentage of Major League Baseball teams, or in our case, if you look at IPL teams. So we have 8 or 10 teams, and we can easily figure it out by analyzing and researching each team's batting performance. Okay, So in this case, sampling is not required because there are very less number of teams and each of these teams can be accessed. The data can be accessed about each of these teams. Okay. Data on each team, getting averages and winning percentage are readily available. That is what I already discussed. Next, please. Okay. Now, before going further, other concepts, let us talk about sampling statistics. Okay. So when we talk about sampling statistics, we will be going to statistics. Okay. And in this case, we are looking at population, sample space, sampling frame, sampling units, sample size. And in relation to this, we will also discuss about population mean, population standard deviation, sample mean, sample standard deviation, sampling error. Now, when we talk about sampling, whatever research we do, for example, you are a PhD scholar and you want to study some study about the youngsters. Okay, for example, if I say, what is the impact of social media on youngsters? Okay, so in this case, what we have to do, we have to first define the population. Okay, I have just spoken what I have spoken a title of a research that I want to find out the impact of social media on youngsters, lifestyle you can say, or their daily routine you can say. Okay, so in this case, because this title includes youngsters, so youngsters will be defined as the population of our research. Okay, now in this case we have millions of youngsters. If we talk about India, then in India we can look at this study. If you talk about across the world, then you will find millions of youngsters. Okay, those who use social media. So all those youngsters who use social media, they will be your population. Now sample space is related with that you have zeroed down to a particular area, and in that area you have a number of youngsters who use social media. Okay, so that will be your sample space. Sampling frame would be what? Like if you have youngsters working in maybe in BPO industry, because if I talk about call centers and BPO industry, many youngsters, they work over there. Second, if you look at universities and schools, okay, there are also specifically universities, because young age, you can look at 18 and above, around 24, 25 years. Okay, so from universities and schools and these BPO industries, you can find out a structured list of youngsters. Okay, so when you have a list of youngsters, then that is considered as sampling frame. The similar kind of example could be like telephone directory. In one particular region, if you look at Delhi, for example, then in Delhi, all the people who are having landline telephones, earlier times we used to have telephone directory. Now this telephone directory is also a sampling frame. Okay, so that is how you can make the analogy between list of students you find from the universities and BPO industry. Okay, then sampling units. Out of this sampling frame, you will choose some of the units for your sample size. Okay, so that will be your sample size, and all these units which are in there in the sampling frame, that will be considered as your sampling units. Okay. Now, when we look at right-hand side, we see population mean, population standard deviation, sample mean, sample standard deviation, sampling error. These are the statistical, you can say, parameters for understanding sampling statistics. Okay, and in subsequent slides, we will look at these parameters, these variables, and we'll try to understand sampling statistics. Okay. Next, please. Now, before I go further, let me ask you a few questions. Suppose you are interested in describing the nationality of Nobel Prize winning scientist. Now you can write your response in the chat box. What would an element in your study be? What would be the population be? Elements here, you can look at the sampling units, okay, the respondents. So in this case, what would an element in your study be if you are trying to describe the nationality of Nobel Prize winning scientist? And what would be your population? Okay, there is a question from Rajashri Sutar, and he is asking that whether sampling frame and sampling units are same or different. No, these are different. Sampling frame is a recorded list of sampling units. Okay, it is a recorded list. Like for example, I gave you a telephone directory example. Okay, so there may be other sampling units, but if they are not part of any list, they will not be considered as sampling frame. Okay. So what would an element be in your study? All those people who have got the Nobel Prize, that would be your population or your element. Aditya Sharma has written all those people who have got the Nobel Prize, they will be considered as population. Okay, we will come back to this quiz. Question number 1. Let us move to the next. Next slide, please. And so all the nationals in different countries, those who received Nobel Prize, they will be part of this population. Okay, quiz question number 2. Okay, every single member of population will be an element. Why do you think that every single member of the population will be an element for this studying of this? If you consider this, then the whole population of the world can be considered for this population. Nobel Prize, isn't it? Number 2, let us move to question number 2. In the case of parliament election in India, the population is, and the elements of this population are. This is question number 2, which we will answer during the discussion. Move to the next, please. Question number 3. The local television station conducted a study of TV viewers in the local viewing region. A list of all residential customers who subscribe to cable TV was obtained from the cable company. The list had 200,000 households as subscriber. The TV station samples every 40th household on the subscriber list. An interviewer visited each household and conducted the survey on viewing habits of household members. Okay, so this is what is described about this study, okay, this survey. Now, what is the sampling frame of the study in this case? Yeah, that is true, Ayush. Those who received the Nobel Prize, they will be considered as population of the study in this case. Okay, no problem. We will discuss it when I will come back to this quiz, and we will discuss each one of these 3 questions. Right now, okay, if you want me to go back to question number 2 and question number 3. Okay, move to the next slide, please. Okay, now let us understand the process of sampling, that is randomization. So what we do in the case of in the case of survey research, we go for sampling. Okay, we select a sample from the population. Okay, so we use a method known as randomization. Okay, we will look at the process of randomization. Okay, we will try to understand what is the meaning of randomization. Okay, so identify and define population under study. That was the first thing which we have to do, and that is what I have asked in the very first question, that if you consider all the Nobel Prize winners across different nations, then what will be the total population and what will be the elements. Then you have to define the sample space, and then after defining the sample space, identify the sampling frame, decide about the sample size, deciding about the sampling units, and then after that you have to choose a method to select a sample, okay, and sampling units. And for doing that, we use 2 kind of sampling. Number 1 is probability sampling, and number 2 is non-probability sampling. Okay, move to the next slide, please. Okay, now before I go to the probabilistic sampling and non-probabilistic sampling, or probability sampling or no probability sampling, non-probability sampling, let us talk about the sampling error. Okay, so when we do sampling and when we do survey, then we have we get 3 kind of error. One is coverage error, second is non-response error, and third is sampling error. Move to the next, please. Now, what is the meaning of coverage error? Error that results from difference between the sampling frame and the target population. Okay, so sometimes what happens, we have a very large population and we have sample space, but the sampling frame is not including all these, important respondents, sampling units. Okay, so it results because the sampling frame is not the representative of the population, and that happened in the case of American presidential election. Okay. Number 2, people are typically left out if samples are drawn from phone books, car registration, etc. So that is what is the coverage error. Unlisted phone numbers, one of the greatest potential for coverage error. Okay, so when we look at a telephone directory, then it is not necessary that all those who own the telephone, they are part of this telephone directory. Okay, so those who are excluded from the telephone directory, and if a study is done and those who are not included, who are not in the telephone directory, then that will be considered as coverage error. Okay, so there are different kind of different kind of things which brings in coverage error. Okay, if you are not covering the right respondents, okay, and if your sampling frame is not the right representative of your population, okay, so in that case it will give you a coverage error. Next slide, please. More about coverage error. People are typically left out if samples are drawn from form books, car registration, etc. Unlisted phone numbers, one of the greatest potential for coverage error. That is again, I think I have repeated what I have written in the previous slide. Fraudsters use random digit dial to avoid unlisted numbers. So that is what they do. Random digit dialing is the way by which they can remove this coverage error. Okay, and this can create, if we have lots of coverage error, this will create lots of problem. Okay, telephone directory I have already used, so this is going to create some kind of problem if we do research, conduct research. Okay, next please. Now after coverage error, as we have discussed various ways by which this coverage error may creep in, then another important error is non-response error. Sometimes what happens when you go for sampling and when you ask question to these people, they are reluctant to be part of your research. Okay, so in this case, that will be considered as non-response error. What kind of people might not be home to pick up the phone in the early evening when most survey organizations make their calls? So you are trying to get connected with the respondents, but they are not picking up your phone. Okay, so that will be considered as non-response error. If you do some kind of like research where you go for email, you use emails, you send emails to your respondents, but then you do not receive the email back. Okay, like what happens in the case of email survey, normally we have 10 to 15% response rate. Okay, so that is non-response error. So when we look at this, that why people, they do not want to respond to your emails and your telephones, then we can identify the reasons for non-response error. Okay, and accordingly we can, if we take care of these people who do not respond to your emails and calls, then we can decrease the non-response error. Okay, next please. Okay, so after understanding coverage error and non-response error, let us go to sampling error. Okay, now what do you mean by sampling error? Any difference between the characteristics of a sample and the characteristics of the population from which the sample is drawn, that is considered as sampling error. So in this case, for example, if you want to conduct a research of a favorite brand of luxury cars, okay, now in this case, what will be your population? Your population would be what? Those who can purchase the luxury car, those who have the purchasing power capacity of luxury car. And accordingly, you will decide your sample space. But if you decide to take sample from those localities where middle income people and lower income people reside, then that is going to be a sampling error. Okay, so because those respondents, they are not representing your population. Okay, so there would be sampling error. Second thing, that if you research a very big population and you take multiple samples, then in one sample you consider different kind of respondent units, and in different sample, in another sample, you consider different kind of respondents which are not representative of your population, then that is going to create a sampling error. Third situation, when you do not use random sampling process in selecting your sample, then that would be considered a sampling error. Okay, so more we will discuss about this sampling error in next slides when we will talk about random process or randomization. Okay. So because of this sampling error, what will happen? The margin of error will be created over there. It will creep in. Okay. So the margin of error will suggest that how far the actual population parameter is likely to be from the statistics. Margin of error is demonstrating that. Okay. Next, please. Okay, so let us come to this to learn different types of sampling. Now, number one, that broadly there are two types of sampling. Number one is probability sampling and number two is non-probability sampling. Okay, under probability sampling, you have simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, and multi-stage sampling. In non-probability sampling, you have judgmental or purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling, or convenience sampling. Okay, now each one of these sampling we will try to understand. Move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so let us talk about simple random sampling. Now in simple random sampling, when we talk about selecting our respondents from the population, then we give equal chance of selection to all the respondents, all the units. Okay, and this is executed by simple random sampling. Now in simple random sampling, we use the random process. Now what do you mean by random process? The random process is something like that. If I want to select 10 students out of 60 students population, if my population is 60 and I want to select 10 students, then using simple random sampling, what I will do, I will make 60 chits and I will write the name of each student on this chit. I will fold the chit inside, which should not reflect the name. Okay, and then I will take a big bowl and I will mix all these 60 chits rigorously. Okay, and then one chit I will pick up and I will not replace it, and then I will pick up second chit. Okay, likewise I will pick up 10 chits. Okay, now this is how I will select 10 units from the population of 60. Now what I have done in this, that I have given equal chance of selecting to all the chits. When I pick up one chit, the probability of selection of each chit is 1 by 60. And if I do not replace it back and pick another chit, then the probability of selecting one chit out of 59 chit is 1 by 59. So there is no bias in selection of these sampling units. Okay, so that is simple random sampling. Okay, so it is a way to draw a simple.
Have you lost your voice? You sure, sir?
I think he has a network issue.
Yes, ma'am. Let's wait for a while.
Mm-hmm. Everyone to kindly wait. He will be joining us back soon.
He's reconnecting in 1 minute, Chandra ma'am.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Yes, we have him back now.
Okay, so what I was talking about simple random sampling, and in simple random sampling, what we do, we use a random process. And as I suggested, that random process is a process where we give equal chance of selection to all the respondents, all the units. Okay, I gave you example of selecting 10 students out of 60 students. If my population is 60 and I want to select 10 students, then what is the way? What is the random process way? By following that way, we are giving equal chance of selection to all the students, okay, all the 60 students, and that is known as simple random sampling. And we can use probability distribution for that also, okay? And that is, you already know about that normal distribution curve we will be talking about in the subsequent slides. Okay, so simple random sampling, equal chance of selection to each of the units, and there is no biasness. So if we follow that process, that is known as simple random selection, simple random sampling. Okay, now simple random sampling is time consuming, it is costly, but it gives you the most accurate results. Okay, so that is where simple random sampling is more beneficial, advantageous. Okay, but it is impractical actually. Okay, next slide please. Next is systematic sampling. Now systematic sampling suggests that you follow a proper system in selection of your samples. Okay, there is a population, you go for defining your population, then your sample is space, then you go for sampling frame, and out of the sampling frame, now you can go for systematic sampling. Now in systematic sampling, what we do, we arrange our sampling units in ascending order or descending order depending upon their characteristics. We give them some serial numbers or some kind of tag to them, and then we arrange them. Okay, so after that, what we do, we follow a system. Now if we follow this system, then what we do, that for example, again, if I have the 60 students and I want to select 10 students out of that, so what will I do? I will find out first selection using simple random selection. But my next selection will be based on a system which will be calculated by following this formula, that the population divided by the sample size. So in the example of students where I have 60 as a population and 10 as my sample size, so 60 divided by 10, and that gives me 6. Okay, so after my first selection, which comes out to be, for example, 5th, okay, as my first selection. Now the next selection would be 5 plus 6, that is 11th chit. And then the next selection would be 11 plus 6, that is 17th selection. So likewise, till the time you reach to your 10th selection, you will follow this process. So this is systematic sampling. Now here also there is an example given that the total population size is 24 and you want to select 6 out of this 24. So your selection elements would be 4, okay? And this will be the interval between 2 consecutive selection, okay? Every 4th number you will select where after arranging the numbers in ascending or descending order, okay? So that is systematic sampling. Next, please. So this is the formula for calculating selection interval in the case of systematic sampling. You divide to your population with your sample size, okay, and that gives you your selection interval. So if we have a very reasonable population and we want to have systematic sampling, then we select a sample size and then we follow this systematic sampling for selecting the sample size for sampling units. Next, please. Next is stratified sampling. So what happens in the case of sampling? Sometimes we see that overpopulation can be defined based on certain parameters, one single parameter. If we have homogeneous units, respondents, population groups that can be defined by a single parameters, then that can be considered as stratified sampling. So what we do in this case, that the population will be defined based on a similar parameter, similar variable, okay, homogeneous characteristics. For example, if you want to differentiate your population based on gender, then you can divide it by male and female. If you want to differentiate, you want to stratify your sampling based on income, so you can define or you can make the strata based on high income, medium income, or low income group, okay? So there is one underlying variable which will have similarity across all the sampling units, okay? So if we talk about this, then in the case of population, we are 10% women and you want to sample, and those 10% women, then that will be considered as your stratified sampling, okay? Similarly, if I divide my class into like based on region, that can also be considered as stratification, okay? So based on gender, based on income group, based on region, based on cities, we can stratified over respondent units, okay? So that is considered as stratified sampling. Great. Next, please. Types of probability sampling, again stratified sampling, some of the things which possibly I have not covered. Group the study population into strata or into groups that shares a given characteristics that I have already discussed. Enumerate each group separately. So as I discussed that if I have students and there we can divide the students into male and female, okay? So that will be enumerating separately using gender. Random samples within each strata. Now after dividing the strata, in each of the strata we will do random sampling, okay? So that is stratified sampling. So if you look at the kind of difficulties that you can see from simple random sampling to systematic sampling and then to stratified sampling, then you can see that simple random sampling is the hardest one, toughest one to follow, okay? And to make life easy for a researcher can go for systematic sampling and then go for stratified sampling. Next is, please move to the next slide. Next is cluster sampling. Now, in the case of cluster sampling, we look, heterogeneous characteristics of the population. Okay, there has to be clusters of elements in a population. In that case, we go for cluster sampling. Like for example, if you want to know ethnic groups, in your population, okay, in different regions of India. Like if you want to go for Naxalites areas, there you will find different kind of ethnic groups, but there is a cluster of ethnic groups, okay. So in this case, we go for cluster sampling. So there is heterogeneous kind of thing, but there is very thin difference between cluster sampling and stratified sampling, okay. We look at respondent units in terms of uh, mm, responses in stratified sampling, but when we talk about cluster sampling, then we look at possibly reasons, okay, like we have clusters of SMEs, MSMEs, clusters of ethnic people, okay, and similar kind of things we can look at in cluster sampling. So your whole population is defined using heterogeneous characteristics, okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when we talk about that cluster sampling and how it is different than the stratified sampling, let us take an example. Okay, now you are conducting a study of Kentucky high school students. Okay, this is an example from some American textbook, so that's why Kentucky high school students. But then you can look at any Delhi school. Okay, if you want to make an analogy, you could obtain a list of 5 school students in the state and complete random sampling. So all the schools in that particular state you can choose in your study, and using simple random sampling you can select your sample size from the number of schools over there, okay. Now what would be the next step? Obtain a list of 5 schools in Kentucky, random sampling, sample the high school from the list, and then obtain a list of students from each school selected, and then contact each of these students, okay. So after selecting the schools from the clusters in that state, what you do from the each schools, you select students, okay. So that is how cluster sampling can be understood. In the case of stratified sampling, we use one underlying variables such as gender or income or any other kind of variable which decide the homogeneity, similarity of the population. But in the cluster sampling, we use this clustering of elements or respondent units, and then we select them, okay. So that is what is the difference between stratified sampling and cluster sampling. Move on to the next. Multi-stage sampling. Now, multi-stage sampling, in majority of the researches, one single sampling is not sufficient. So we have to go for multi-stage sampling. Okay. So this is a probability sampling procedure where several stages are used. Okay. So you randomly select cluster first, and then you go for simple random selection from each of the cluster. That's what we just did. Okay. So what is the example of random multi-stage sampling? That if you want to select one particular person from one particular region, so what you have to do, first you have to select the area codes randomly from the sample. Okay, we look at different cities, and from the different cities we use area codes. Okay, 3 digits local exchanges randomly sampled. Okay, so in that area, whatever local exchanges are there, and then their last 3 digits are actually selected in the stage number 2, and then last 4 digits are selected, okay, randomly sampled. And in stage 4, that after selecting that particular person, asking the person on phone, okay, you want to interview. So there are 4 stages in multi-stage sampling. First, area code is sampled. Then in area code you have 7 digits or 8 digits. So first, and 3 local exchange digits you select, and then after that 4 digits are selected randomly. Okay, and finally the person who is residing in that particular area, particular city is selected. So this is multi-stage sampling. Next, please. Okay, so here question number 4 comes. you want to draw a sample of the employees at a large university, ensuring that in your sample you have people represented from all personnel categories, including administrator, faculty, secretarial staff, cleaning staff, mailroom staff, technicians, and students. What type of probability sample would be the best? Okay, so I have asked 4 questions. At the end of the session, we will look at all these 4 questions individually. Okay, right now I'm continuing with my presentation. Okay, please move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so now comes non-probability sampling. In non-probability sampling, we have 4 types of sampling, that is judgmental sampling, or it is also known as purposive sampling. Second is quota sampling. Third is snowball sampling. And fourth is convenience sampling. Next slide. So when we talk about judgmental sampling, it is based on the judgment of the researcher. Okay, a non-probability sampling procedure that involves selecting elements based on a researcher's judgment about which elements will facilitate his or her investigation. So if a researcher is highly experienced, knowledgeable person and has, has completed many researches, consumer research or any other kind of research, so possibly he or she is, able to select the respondents, okay, appropriate respondents. Okay, so that is known as judgmental sampling, okay, purposive sampling. Okay, like for example, if you are a researcher in medical field and if you have done your MBBS and MD or MS, then you are the right person. Okay, you want to select, for example, doing some kind of clinical trial. So you are the right person. Okay, so based on your judgment, you will select your sampling units. So that will be considered as judgmental sampling. Next, please. Next slide. Next, non-probability sampling is quota sampling. Okay. So what we have done in this case in non-probability sampling, as the name suggests, sorry, I forgot to tell about non-probability sampling. What is the difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling? So in the case of non-probability sampling, we when we select our samples, we do not give equal chance of selection to all the respondents. Okay, and there is maybe 0 probability of selection of some of the respondent units. Okay, so that is non-probability sampling, and under that we have already discussed about judgmental and purposive sampling. And in quota sampling, if we have, again, this is similar to stratified sampling or cluster sampling, okay, some way connected with them. So what we do in this case, if we have different in our population, if we have different segments, okay, like for example, if in my 60 students class, I have 20 female and 40 male, and I want to select a sample of 10 out of this, and I want to have equal representation of male and female, then what I will do, I will find out what is the right proportion of male out of this population in my sample. So if I say 20 and 60, so what is the ratio? 1:3. So when I select 3 male from my population, I will select 1 female from my population for my selection. Okay, so that is how quota sampling is used. Okay, so the different kind of quotas are assigned in my sample according to the representation of those sampling those units respondents in the population. Okay, got it? So it is a non-probability sampling procedure that involves describing the target population in terms of what are thought to be relevant criteria, and then selecting sample elements to represent the relevant subgroups in proportion to their presence in the target population. Okay, so based on their quota, the sample is also selected. The proportional sample is selected from the quota. Okay. So quota is defined first, and then the sample is selected proportionally. That is quota sampling. Next, please. Next is snowball sampling. This is again one kind of non-probability sampling. So it is again multi-stage kind of thing, and it is also known as referral sampling. Okay, so it is a non-probability sampling procedure that involves using member of the group of interest to identify other members of the group. Okay, so in academic fraternity, sometimes what I do, I receive mails from some scholars, and he or she asks me to fill the questionnaire. But at the same time, she also asks me to refer this questionnaire to my friends, okay, who can fill the questionnaire. Okay, so that is what is snowball sampling. You have also seen that your LIC, insurer agent also calls you sometimes, and he asks for your references. Okay, even though you are his or her customer, but then he also asks you to give some references so that he can approach them. So this is how snowball sampling can be understood. So in snowball sampling, a respondent further refer to other familiar respondents, members of the group. So that is known as snowball sampling. So it is easy way of capturing a large proportion, okay, of the population, okay, and quick way. Next, please. Convenience sampling. So it is a non-probability sampling procedure that involves selecting elements that are readily accessible to the researcher. So as the name suggests, in this kind of sampling, it is up to the researcher, okay, according to his convenience and comfortability, he or she selects the respondent units. Okay, so this is known as convenience sampling. Okay, like if you want to find out favorite brand of shoes, okay, and then in that case, nearby areas you have shopping centers, youngsters and middle-aged people, if it is sports shoes, then you will look at youngsters who actually like to play. Okay, so you go to these nearby shops and malls where these youngsters, they come to purchase shoes. Okay, so because it was convenient for you to reach these respondents, so that's why you took sample of these youngsters. So that is convenience sampling. Okay, so this is known as convenience sampling. Okay, this is also known as available subject sample. Next, please. Okay, so after discussing these, that what is probability sampling and what is non-probability sampling, now the question boils down to this, that which type of sampling technique we should use. Okay, whether we should go for probability sampling, and under probability sampling, shall we go for simple random, systematic, stratified, or cluster, or multi-stage? If you go for non-probability sampling, shall we go for purposive sampling, quota sampling, or convenience sampling, okay, or snowball sampling? Okay, now we have to answer some questions if you want to select the right kind of sampling technique. Number one is it desirable to sample at all, or can the whole population be used? So in that case, we will look at that what kind of sampling techniques we have to use. Okay, if the whole population is a very small population, then there is no point in going for sampling. Okay, and if we can sample the whole population, then we can use sampling. Okay, second is it important to generalize to a larger population? Yes, it is important, because we are trying to inference the characteristics of the population, okay, based on the samples. Okay. Do you have the access and ability to perform probability sampling? If you have the ability to perform, and if you have some kind of techniques and technology available to you to go for probability sampling, then again that will decide whether you go for probability sampling or non-probability sampling. Okay, so major consideration is what kind of methods you use in your research, what kind of theory you want to study in your research, whether it is practical or not, and whether it is ethical or not. So different kind of consideration will be taken care before selecting the right kind of technique. Okay, sampling technique. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so after understanding this sampling, let us now look at the question which I asked. Can we go back to the question number 4? Okay, now question number 4 says that there is some description given over there. You want to draw a sample of the employees at a large university, ensuring that in your sample you have people represented from all personnel categories, including administrator, faculty, secretariat staff, clinical staff, mail room staff, technicians, and student. What type of probability sample would be the best? So in this case, you have to go for multi-stage sampling, okay, and you have to go for stratified sampling because there are different strata. Okay, you can go for administrator, faculty, secretariat staff, cleansing staff. There are these can be defined at different strata. Okay, and from the each strata you can go for simple random sampling. Okay, so this is how you can look at this this question. If anybody wants to contribute to this, answer this, and would say that okay, this stratified sampling is not the right answer, he or she can contribute. Anyone, please?
Any answers to this? Sir, I
Okay,
guess this is their first time. It's too technical for them. So Nishap, I guess he has logged out again. Kishore sir.
He has a network issue. We cannot. Yeah, he's back. Sir is back.
Yeah, so
You are
Rashri
having
has
network.
written that we go for stratified sampling. Question number 3, please. Why, if I ask you counter question, can we go for cluster sampling in this case? Please move to question number 3. Yeah. So in this case, okay, great, Pankaj. So local television station conducted a study of TV viewers in the local viewing region. A list of all residential customers who subscribed a cable TV was obtained from the cable company. The list has 200,000 households as subscriber. The TV station samples every 40th household on the subscriber list. An interviewer visited each household and conducted the survey on viewing habits of household members. What is the sampling frame of the study? So in this case, it is very much given over there, okay, because it is a list of 200,000 households, so that is your sampling frame, okay. So the list of 200,000 household is your sampling frame in this case. It is a straight answer, okay, straight away it is given over there. And a systematic sampling has been used, and every 40th household on the subscriber list has been used, okay. That is the answer of this. So sampling frame is 200,000. Question number 2. In the case of parliament election, the Indian population is what? It is what? Sampling frame, or it is what? Okay, so you can say that in parliament election, the population of India is your sampling frame, and elements of these populations are your sampling units. Am I right or wrong? You can say your whether if I'm right or wrong. Question number 1. I think go to question number 1. Okay, so what would be the element in your study B in this case? Nobel Prize winning scientist, if you look at, so all the people who have applied for, all the scientists who have applied for Nobel Prize, they will be the population, or those who receive the Nobel Prize, they will be considered as population. So all those who apply for that will be considered as population, or those who receive the Nobel Prize, they will be considered as population, nationality of Nobel Prize winning scientist in this case. Question number 1. Suppose you are interested in describing the nationality of Nobel Prize winning scientist. So obviously, if I answer second question, what would be the population be? In this case, all the scientists who got Nobel Prize, they will be considered as your population. Okay. Great. So go back to now the calculation of sample size selection. Sample size. The calculation of sample size. So elements would be what? All the elements, if I say those who have applied and those who received Nobel Prize, they will be what? My population? Okay, great. Okay, go for the calculation of the sample size. Previous slide, please. One step back. Okay, so to calculate correct sample size, next please. To calculate a correct sample size for a research study, we need to understand the normal distribution curve, probability distribution curve. One second. Okay, so we need to we need to understand what is the normal distribution curve, and then we also need to understand the characteristics of the normal distribution curve and what do you mean by sampling error, then the sample size, and then we have to calculate margin of error. Okay, next please. Great. So if you look at this normal distribution curve, this is the curve. This probability distribution curve is considered as normal distribution curve. Okay, and in calculation of the sample size, we use this concept of normal distribution curve. So if you look at this, this is the function. This is the function which is defined by this. This is an exponential function. Okay, and if you look at the z value, this x-axis, if you look at this is classified as z. Okay, so this is an standardized scale. Okay, the middle of this normal distribution curve is having mean, median, mode at the same point. Okay, and if you move to right hand side, one standard sigma and minus one standard sigma, okay, then that will consider 68.27% of your total observation, and then minus 2 sigma to plus 2 sigma 95.45%, and minus 3 sigma to plus 3 sigma 99.73%. Okay, so this is actually the observations you will have between 1 sigma, minus 1 sigma to 1 sigma, both the sides, minus 2 sigma to plus 2 sigma, and minus 3 sigma to 3 sigma. This is the number of observations you will have. Okay, now if we look at mean and standard deviation term, then the middle value is mean. Okay, and this will be 1 standard deviation, this 2 standard deviation, and 3 standard deviation. So if you use mean and standard deviation, population mean and population standard deviation, then also we can write at the x-axis. But because this is a standard scale, so and this standard scale can be calculated by using this formula. Okay, x equal to z equal to x minus mu upon sigma. Okay, now x is the sample mean actually, and mu is your population mean, and sigma is your population standard deviation. Now this is what actually when we understand normal distribution curve and try to find out the value of z. But in the case of sampling distribution, wherein we want to study a large population and a large number of sample means are calculated. Okay, samples are taken and sample means are calculated, standard deviations are calculated. In that case, we use this formula. Okay, this is for sampling distribution. So means of mean, we have large population and we take multiple samples, and for each multiple sample we calculate standard deviation and mean, and after that we calculate mean of means. So if we have multiple samples, in that case the z value, the standard value, will be calculated using this formula. Okay, and there we get the idea of how to calculate sample size. Okay, so z equal to x bar minus mu upon sigma upon root n. This is known as standard error. Okay, this is known as standard error. This is known as standard deviation, but we look at multiple samples, and when we calculate standard deviation of this sampling distribution, then that is considered as standard error. Okay, so z is equal to standard error, and from here x minus mu upon sigma upon root, and from here we can calculate the sample size. Move on to the next, please. Next slide. So if you use that formula which was given in the previous slide, we can find out our sample size, and it should be greater than equal to ZC sigma upon ME. Now ME is what? Margin of error. This is the difference between sample mean and the population mean. Okay, and our sigma is our standard deviation. So when we have standard deviation, And when we want to calculate our sample size, then we will use this formula. Okay, n is greater than equal to zc sigma upon margin of error raised to power 2. And here n is your sample size, sigma is your standard deviation of population, and z value you calculate using the formula. Okay, just now we saw in the now this z value will be calculated using level of significance. Okay, and it will be given from the z table. Okay, and margin of error you can you can fix yourself. If you have one margin of error, then z value will be 1. Okay, likewise. Okay, so it is the difference between x bar minus mu. Okay, if we calculate margin of error. If you have the proportion instead of standard deviation, if you have proportion as population proportion as your parameter, in that case, this is the formula for calculating your sample size. Okay. So in this case, P bracket open 1 minus P, that will be multiplied with this formula which is given over here. Okay, so these two formula can be used for calculating your sample size. Okay, now that is how you can calculate. But if you want to calculate sample size, then online calculator is also available. What I have just found out is these are from online sources only. Okay, so this is from some website. Okay, move to the next slide, please. Here, if you look at this, this is the name of the slide. Okay, getcal.com statistics sample size calculate. Okay, so you can use this calculator for finding out the exact sample size. So what you have to do over here, if you are using population standard deviation, then first you have to define the confidence interval, and that will decide the value of z. And then the population standard deviation, whether you want to have one population standard deviation or two population standard deviation, and then the margin of error in percentage. Okay, so using this calculator, okay, you can find out sample size. If you use population proportion in calculating your sample size, then you have to click on this link. Okay, and then you have to enter the required information, and then you will get your sample size. So this is how you calculate your sample size. Okay, great. Next. So this is at the end of my presentation. I want to say that sampling is a mean to an end. It is not an end in itself. We sample because studying every element in our population is frequently beyond our means or would jeopardize the quality of our study. That's why we go for sampling. On the other hand, we don't need to sample when studying every member of our population is feasible. So in that case, we do not go for sampling. Okay, so that is how we can understand sampling and calculation of sample size. Thank you so much to all of you.
Maurya sir,
Yes, please.
how are you?
I'm good, ma'am. Thank you so much, Garima, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you so much. After seeing your presentation today, I feel like doing my PhD again and doing a coursework with you. I think so. You have clarified so many more doubts, and it would have been it is a great session for all the people. There are a lot of people who have been logged in, and I'm sure it is really going to benefit. As I'm saying that I wish I could do my coursework again with you. Thank you so very much, and we are really honored to have you here, sir.
I want to make a confession over here before I close this session. Actually, I'm not satisfied with today's presentation. I wanted to contribute. I was not aware that I will not be able to interact with the respondents. When I deliver lecture, I normally interact with respondents, and then the discussion is built up, and then it goes to next level. So
No,
that
sir,
kind
we are
of feeling
definitely
was.
going to, now things are opening up. We are definitely going to invite you in person in our conference. And I think so that would be a wonderful thing. And to meet you in person, once again, I'm really honored and for your acceptance to be here. And it has been a very, very valuable session for all of us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maurya sir, for coming, sir, on a very short notice. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining in. We'll be having our next seminar series next Friday from 3 to 5, wherein we have resource person from SPSS and JMP software. Uh, they'll run you through how to do statistical analysis using these software. So we hope to see you all. And the next session is scheduled for next Friday between 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. You'll get the joining link soon. Thank you so much, everyone. And on behalf of Vatel Hotel and Tourism Business School, I would like to again thank Dr. Maurya for taking out time. Thank you so much, Maurya sir.